when we do stream, you'll know, get notifications. Also, this meeting's going to be pretty informal, so if you have any questions, just raise your hand or blurt it out, whatever you feel most comfortable doing. I'll try to answer the best I can. And also, if you want to get up and get food or get a beer or whatever, you can do that as well. So, welcome to the first ever Hyperledger Nashville meeting and the March edition of the Nashville Blockchain Developers Meetup. I'm Daniel Johnson, the organizer for Hyperledger Nashville. Tonight we're going to be kind of going over Blockchain 101, introducing Hyperledger, and talk about some use cases that Hyperledger is being used in the real world. And then we're going to do a hands-on tutorial as well with Hyperledger Fabric and Hyperledger Composer. So I want to give a quick shout out and thanks to the Nashville Blockchain Developers Group. And I want to also give a shout out to David Boswell, who helped me set up this meetup, the Hyperledger meetup, that is. And I also want to thank everybody for coming out, because I know on a Tuesday night you could have had other things to do, but you decided to come here. And I appreciate you giving me your time and attention. So, quick few things about myself. Like I said, I'm Daniel Johnson. I'm a blockchain developer at AdTech Digital. We have a few employees from AdTech Digital here that I can see. Do you care to talk about what AdTech does or anything?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
I mean, you can tell them if you want to.
Basically, they make television broadcasting equipment, so everybody in here probably watches sports or some major event like a royal wedding or anything. I don't think a bunch of guys watch the royal wedding, but, you know. But they make television broadcasting equipment, so like the receivers and transmitters. You see the big satellite trucks outside by like a football stadium or whatever. Their transmitters go in there and the receivers go back to the broadcast station. I'm getting my master's degree in healthcare informatics from Lipscomb University. They're the only school in Tennessee that's teaching blockchain in healthcare, so if you're interested in that, check out Lipscomb University. They're a great program. I'm about to graduate from here. I'm also certified by IBM as a blockchain essentials developer, which is their like level 1 certification. And I've also been certified by IBM as a blockchain foundations developer, which is their like level 2 certification. Tonight, we'll probably get pretty close to where everybody in here, if they want, can get their level 1 certification. I will send all the links to how you want to get certified. Now that's free. You just have to make an IBM account, but it is free. And I'll put all that in the Slack channel or on the page. If you have any questions for tonight, I can't answer it, just email me. That's my email, danaj@adtechinc.com. I will answer, try to get back to you as quickly as I can, but be patient with me. So, real quick, since I kind of talked about myself, if it's okay with everyone, can we kind of go around the room, introduce ourselves, and, you know, like basically like who you are, what your profession is, and do you have any blockchain experience in any platform? So I guess we can start over here with Jim.
Okay, I'm number one.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Weaver, and I'm a database developer. Work at Parallon Business Performance Group, and it's healthcare related and financials. Blockchain, I have an avid interest, more or less as a hobbyist, and just trying to embrace the details as much as I've embraced the features. So I'm a rank amateur when you get right down to it on blockchain. But I hope I pull something in from this.
All right. Well, welcome, Jim.
Thanks.
Glad to have you. I guess we go over here.
I'm Chris DiCarlo. I've been a long-time customer service and tech support manager at AdTech Digital, trying to understand the full-featured business applications and security applications that we can identify and use for our company. We've manufactured broadcast products for partners all over the world, so we're dealing with currencies to secure, and there's a lot of fees and transaction fees, so just trying to understand its capabilities and what we can use it for in the future.
Hey, good evening. My name is Matthew Johnson. I have an answer to a side note. I'm Daniel's brother. But I'm not a programmer. I'm an attorney, actually. I work in-house at an insurance services company where we outsource some of the insurance underwriting process. So if that tickles your imagination at all, you're welcome to talk to me. But I mainly practice in transactional as well as some privacy issues that come up in the law. And I dabble with programming and kind of grew up in a tech environment, so it certainly interests me. And so I'm here to walk through it.
I'm Lane Rogers, and I'm the founder of a tech startup called Hypermobility. And we were actually looking to solve some security problems that were just centralized, and we were looking to decentralize them, so we started with blockchain as a possible solution for that. But actually, it's kind of spawned some other projects, even getting into media streaming and building a new digital media platform that leverages blockchain technology to decentralize some of the streaming issues that we look at with Spotify and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's.
I'm Scott. The community is a June-centric and build some freedom-related projects.
Lou DeSantis, botanist, bartender, blockchain tourist. I just come these things for fun and learn as much as I can.
I am Leon. I'm a blockchain developer for Nashville. I've been into the industry for a few years now. Yeah, that's me.
I'm Chris Ely. Chris Ely. I used to work, many of you know me, I've worked at BTC Media, which is a media company here in Nashville focused on crypto. I recently left there, and now I'm working on a payroll application, leveraging blockchain underneath for international workers.
I'm Dane. I'm an insurance agent for State Farm. Been in that for about 3 years. Originally got into it about investing. Gone pretty deep on that part of it, so I learned more of the actual business use cases and utility.
By the way, did you get my email?
I did. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to be sure.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Sean. I'm the manager at the Department of Revenue for the state. Always been interested in the blockchain as far as my programming, as far as that goes. I used to be a computer science programmer, computer science major at MTSU. I've had probably like one class of C++ programming and JavaScript, so that's as far as it goes.
I'm Chris McNeil. I'm a patent attorney at a law firm around here called Walden Lands. My experience in blockchain is I've done a few blockchain-related patents, so I'm just really excited to learn more about it.
Jeff Bowen. I'm a software developer and have not done any development with blockchain stuff. I've done a lot of the iOS web, and so I'm just curious to kind of get started on a practical implementation.
My name is Kara, and I am a contractor, actually a small business owner here in the local area, and I am kind of completely ignorant to all of the above, and I'm just kind of trying to be a sponge and soak up all that I can and see what differences we got and how I can incorporate it into my industry and commercial. As we see cranes going up everywhere and buildings going up, I want to be on the front end of some of how to incorporate it on the commercial side. So thank you for having me.
You said your name is Kara?
Kara, yes.
Kara.
Kara, yes.
Kara, got it.
Thank you.
And I'm Ron Johnson. I work at AdTech, as he said, and we manufacture broadcast communications equipment. So we've been, Daniel has been researching this and learning it for quite some time to help us deploy some applications that we might deploy using Hyperledger. We also work with these guys over here a lot, the Nashville Blockchain Developers Group, and we may be doing Ethereum too, so we don't know. But these guys have got all that Ethereum knowledge over here, all those guys over there. So if you can get some information about that too. By the way, you can use Ethereum as part of Hyperledger. I'm sure he'll tell you that though.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll talk all about that stuff. So, anybody in office fan in here? Awesome. I love that show. So when I was learning blockchain, I learned about it at the code camp, as you can see my nice, beautiful shirt. That's where I can find out about blockchain and everything. So when I was diving in and learning and everything about that, I was trying to learn this stuff. There was really nowhere I could go to find information. No one could explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Everybody was using all this technical jargon and like I could scare you, but I kind of stuck with it and I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I've done it. I'm not saying I'm an expert at this stuff. I've been doing the Hyperledger for about 1.5 years now, almost 2 years. So yeah, but I'm going to try to explain it to y'all at a 5-year-old level because I know everybody's in here from different walks of their technical background. So I'm just teaching as if I was in your shoes. So I set some goals for the Hyperledger Nashville group. There's only one goal. And the goal is, I want to provide you with information that you can develop a Hyperledger Fabric application, very basic application, but an application. And we're going to put it with a REST API and a bare bones AngularJS front by the end of the year. And if you don't know what a REST API is or AngularJS, that's totally fine. We're going to talk all about that in later sessions. But just kind of keep this in the back of your mind. You're going to be able to build a blockchain application. Tonight, actually, we're going to be building a whole blockchain network, and I'll kind of get into that later. So you're going to be able to go home and actually have something. So, blockchain 101. I'm just starting here because, like I said, everybody's got different walks of life. I don't know what everybody's blockchain knowledge is, so we're just going to go over this real quick. So what are blockchain technologies? They encompass both distributed ledgers and smart contracts. You're probably wondering, what is a distributed ledger? Essentially, it's a append-only system of record for a log of transactions. You're going to be able to see one of those tonight. A lot of these slides I've done, and Hyperledger's also provided me with a lot of these slides. There's a lot of information here. I'm not going to really go into too much detail of this because we do have a lot of information to cover. But like I said, I will be providing the slides, and if you want to go to the Slack channel and everything, you can get these slides and also get the code that I'm going to be going over tonight. And I think I put a link to the Twitch channel too. Excuse me. So what is a smart contract? In Hyperledger, it's actually known as chain code. Why they call it chain code, they never really say why. But a lot of people like to use the term smart contract and chain code interchangeably. There's not really a conventional, like, you're wrong, he's right kind of thing. But essentially what it is it's the code for any complex program stored and executed on a blockchain. So transactional logic, essentially. And you guys are going to be able to create a very small smart contract tonight as well. So you'll be hands-on with that. So why business blockchain technologies? Ron is going to kind of talk about that if he would like to go more in depth on why we need this, because he's a businessman and figured he would be able to explain this better than I would.
Well, I will come up there and do that so I can be on the camera too.
Just
Okay. If everybody can hear me. In blockchain, we have two, I'll call them the types of blockchain applications. We have the public network, and all these guys are here, they know that. We do applications every month. We show some example of what's on a public network. But with what we've been focused on in Hyperledger is primarily going to be used on a private network. And why is that? Because I deal with customers who they don't want to be out on the cloud somewhere. Heck, some of them own the cloud. Comcast is one of my customers. Microsoft is one of my customers. They got their own blooming cloud. So they don't want to put it out on there. They want to maintain security. So in private environments, they want to have something that they can use that will allow them to execute their business transactions. And so a lot of these companies, for instance, Microsoft has a product they've got out called Cocoa, or they're trying to get out. I think it's more than vaporware now. IBM's got offerings, again, for business. SAP, Oracle, Accenture, a lot of these companies, they have that. And what we do in the private networks is you basically are going to be, usually it's a multi-step process. For instance, in my particular business, our salesman may sell a piece of equipment. So he's going to give what we call an offer of sale, which you attorneys can appreciate that, it's a contract. But I know these attorneys, because they're going to help you with some of the stuff, basic legal stuff. They would have a proposal, an offer of sale. If it's accepted, they would give it to the sales manager. He's going to look at it. Now, you notice this is going to be a process. This is why Hyperledger in a private network is good, because it's a process. If you're just selling something and getting the money, you may not need it. A lot of people think they need blockchain for things they just don't need. But in this case, as you're about to find out, it becomes very valuable. So, he takes a sales order, he sends it over to the sales manager. If it's good, he'll check it off. He'll send it over to accounting. I mean, it's got to be paid for, so you got to determine your terms. Is it going to be net 30? Is it going to be cash up front? Is it going to be cash on delivery? Whatever those terms are, they have to be determined. And he'll use the term later. This is part of what we call consensus, and they'll get written into what's called chain code. But anyway, the next thing that would be done, and in my particular company, it would go to manufacturing because it's a piece of equipment. If it's on the shelf, they take it off and ship it. If it's not, they would build it. Then it finally goes to shipping, and the shipping people would ship it out. At that time, the invoice is cut, sent to the customer, and that's that. Now with blockchain, some of that stuff could be speeded up, and the other thing is, you wouldn't have a problem with, which we've had in the past, maybe somebody shipping something before the terms were actually established. You know, maybe it was a customer we've been dealing with for 10 years and they've gotten late in their payments. And in the past, our shipping department thinks, well, you know, we know these guys. We know them personally. We'll just go ahead and ship it. But in reality, they've been paying late. We didn't want them to ship it. They didn't follow the process. So here, you have a process with this technology that you can put into place. And there's no way that the people in shipping could ever get the documentation to ship it until the accounting people signed off, and the sales manager signed off, and obviously the salesman signed off who was dealing with the customer. So that's a real-world application now. I think in his application tonight that he's going to show you, he's not going to have all that many stages. Probably just one or two, but it's two.
We have two.
Okay, two. So I think I mentioned you, the salesman, the sales manager, the accounting department, the manufacturing, the shipping, that's five. We're not going to have that many, but you could, and those all would be different parts of the process.
Thank you. So kind of like you said, the program we're going to be talking about, or the program we'll be doing, is going to be really, like, it's like hello world level. If everybody knows hello world, like, it's very hello world level introduction to blockchain. So, business blockchain company components glossary, use this as more of a reference. On the consensus layer, I'm going to have Matthew, since he's an attorney, kind of speak on that more. So do you mind either coming up here or just saying that whatever you feel comfortable doing?
No, I'll just sit here and talk. And I know we have some other attorneys in the room, and I think what Daniel's speaking to is when you go and design the blockchain application, you just want some other people on your team, perhaps like people with attorneys who can to talk on the legal level. Because what the blockchain is going to do is it's essentially going to be what they call a smart contract. So they have these different terms that you'll have in the contract. You'll want to make sure that all the parties involved with that contract agrees with it. The term he's using is consensus. So like what Ron was saying is that if something needs to go to accounting before it goes to manufacturing, before it gets shipped off to the customer, those things, I mean, technically they'll be able to snap into place, but you want to make sure all of that is legally enforceable too. So you'll simply just want to make sure that that what you're building out technically is also can be applied legally in the real world with that consensus party where everybody's agreeing together. And I think, Daniel, that's kind of what you were getting at.
Yeah. Chris, would you kind of agree with that for the most part? Yeah. So kind of use this as a reference tool. Like the way I design these slideshows, it's very, like you can come back and reference this stuff. So early adopters in the industry, as you can see, financial services, that's more for, I would say, the Ethereum and public side. They're dealing a lot more with cryptocurrency and everything, as some of you already know. Supply chain, it's going to be huge. Already some companies are dealing with it, like Walmart, and I think like Ford or one of the car manufacturers, Nissan, I think. And then healthcare, which is huge here in Nashville. Healthcare is kind of on the back end, in the sense of incorporating blockchain into like hospitals with like a electronic health record or EHR. Dion can probably speak on that more if you want to. You don't have to. I'm not forcing him to do anything about it. But he works at Hatch Health, so he's a blockchain developer. So he's kind of doing some healthcare related blockchain applications. I'm not going to pitch him this one. I think I kind of did. So now we're going to kind of get into the Hyperledger aspect of it. So introduction to Hyperledger. It's a global cross-industry community of communities advancing business blockchain technologies. We've kind of talked about that, and as you can see, it's open source, which is a big thing, especially for businesses. So open source means you can kind of create it to your liking. You're not having to do any specific stuff. So kind of playing off of that, since it's open source, it's hosted by, well, that was weird, the Linux Foundation. This is all the applications or projects or groups that the Linux Foundation hosts. I think one of these especially everybody will somewhat recognize, and that's Node.js. Does everybody recognize that for the most part? Yeah. You might recognize, I think his name's Linus. He's the little Linux mascot. But the Linux Foundation is the one that's kind of hosts this whole Hyperledger initiative. So the Hyperledger Genesis, the only reason why I really put this in here is to kind of keep in mind, like as Ron said, blockchain is not the end-all to be-all. It has its purposes, and the technology is young, and it's still in its early days. So we're like in the, 95, 96 era of the internet, kind of. That's where we're at with this. It's going to blow up, so you guys are here at the perfect time for it. So these specs, they gave to me, this is from 2017, or at the end of 2017. So these specs are different. They have 6 tools now, I believe, 6 frameworks. They're just launched their version 1.4, which is their LTS release, which is basically what LTS means is like saying we're going to support this out to, I think, 2 years, I think is what, if one of you guys might know that. I think it's about 2 years. Yeah. And then we have over, it says 112, there's almost 200 meetups now around the world. And obviously that number for meetup participation is much bigger. So these are just kind of some numbers. So Hyperledger is becoming a worldwide thing. Hang on one second. Sorry. Let me just write it down. Okay, sorry about that. So this is where we're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes here, the Hyperledger frameworks. We're going to approach this from an umbrella approach, because I feel like that's the best way to kind of wrap our heads around it. So like I said, the Linux Foundation kind of hosts this whole Hyperledger initiative. Within the Hyperledger umbrella, there are different frameworks. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to talk more about basically it's like a 10,000-foot overview of each framework. And you guys can kind of, we're going to cover each framework eventually at this meetup, but we're going to focus on Hyperledger Fabric right now. So like I said, Hyperledger Fabric, and they also have these tools to help you either view the blockchain like some sort of interface, or help you rapidly deploy a blockchain network, which we will be doing with Hyperledger Composer, or you can help, it's basically things like that. So here's like the 10,000 foot overview of each blockchain framework. There's actually a new framework that was just announced in January. Excuse me. It's called Hyperledger Grid, and it's for supply chain. So if you're in the supply chains area, it might be the perfect framework for you. I don't have a whole lot of information on it. I can get more information on it later. Anybody who's really interested in that, we can have people come over and talk about it, or whatever we can do for that. Like I said, we're going to be focusing on Hyperledger Fabric tonight, which, like Matthew talked about, consensus and membership services that are, when we insert those and take those out as we please. Hyperledger Composer is a business blockchain tool. It's kind of the bit, IBM's the one that's really kind of pushing it. So if IBM's supporting it, it ain't going nowhere. It's like I said, it's a suite of tools to help you quickly deploy a blockchain network into a business environment. So that's huge for a lot of businesses. They have their own modeling language, and business people can write this logic or this model. It's very simplistic. You're going to be able to see it tonight, and they're going to be specifying the participants, the assets, and the transactions. These are the three things you have to have to submit a blockchain network to a business environment. The transaction logic, the chain code, or the smart contract is all written in JavaScript. So we'll be doing a little bit of JavaScript, but you're not having to do any massive programming. So don't worry if you're feeling worried that you've got to do some programming or have some programming knowledge. And then we're going to be you'll be able to generate REST API and Angular applications from the model. So like I said, in our goal, we're going to be generating a REST API and AngularJS front end by the end of the year. So we're going to be using Hyperledger Composer to do that. So some Hyperledger Composer benefits. Like I said, it's going to help move the business from concepts to blockchain solutions. It's helping you get that deployment real quickly. It's going to help you make it easier to iterate, and it's going to save businesses a lot of money and get it out faster. So it's from cutting the process down to like 10 steps to making it like very few steps. So I'm going to go ahead and define this, talk about this now, because otherwise I feel like you guys might get confused. And if you guys do get confused, let me know, and I'll try to either break it down more. We're going to be designing a business network to deploy out to, this is essentially your blockchain file. You're going to have 3 essential files with a 4th optional file. It's called the model file, where I kind of talked about the business person could design this, and basically it's just the attributes of the participant, the transaction, and the asset. The script file is the smart contract or the chain code, and the access control is when a person joins the blockchain network, what permissions do they have within that? So if it was like, a user, they might only have access to view something, where, a system administrator might have access to view it and also submit something to the blockchain. A blockchain architect would be able to design that as they please. So there's not really one way of doing it, because very few people have done it. So like I said, the model file will consist of the assets, participants, transactions. It can include events, but it doesn't have to include events. The script files, like I said, is going to talk about the implementation of the transaction. So these would be like conditional statements saying that this thing happens, then do this thing. And then access control, like I talked about, is all about users having what access or permission to access. And then the query file, I forgot to mention this, it's kind of like a SQL database. So if anybody has a database, I'm sorry. Oh, I was gonna say, if one of y'all said you had a database background, I forgot which one, you can kind of insert that. But I have not seen a SQL or a query file inserted into any of these before, so that just kind of tells you how rare it's used. And this is just a visual just saying it's all combined together into one file. It's called a DNA document, but everybody in the community refers to it as a banana document. Don't ask me why they call it a banana document. I don't really know, but it's called Business Network Archive DNA. Just remember it like DNA, like the airport here. That's how I remember it. So yeah. So. Or banana, whatever makes you remember it best. So I'm going to go through these real quick. These are industry use cases. You're going to recognize probably a few companies. You can go back and read through these later, but they're there's a lot, as you can see. I'm not going to scare y'all with this. Wells Fargo is kind of the most notable. I feel like everybody would recognize Wells Fargo here. And they're using Hyperledger Fabric for cross-border payments. And if you want to find out more information, when I put the slideshow down, you can click these links and they'll redirect you to it. Healthcare records, Cash Health, Dion, and also Changed Healthcare. They're also here in Nashville as well. I think headquartered here, I don't know exactly the specifics, but they're looking for blockchain developers right now, so the need is here. They're dealing with healthcare records. They're using Hyperledger Composer, which we're going to be dealing with tonight. Interstate medical licensing, another Cash Health thing. They're using Hyperledger. They claim to be using Hyperledger Fabric. Is that right, Dion? They're using Hyperledger Fabric for this still, or they are? Okay. Because I know like they kind of went off and they kind of came back on, and I didn't know.
Yeah, we use Hyperledger for product credentialing and licensing.
Yeah, we saw a preview at a blockchain developers, or not developers, but blockchain meetup a while back, where Corey talked about it. Seafood supply chain. Intel essentially has put out like a video explaining how they kind of use Hyperledger Solitude, which is kind of helps you track on that. Diamond supply chain. So as Ron mentioned, SAP, IBM. There's also, those are two major companies supporting Hyperledger, like on a cloud service. There's also AWS just announced it, like, what?
December. Last year they said they weren't going to do it. I think it was in 2017. They said we're not going to do it. And then they decided, I think in December, to jump into it.
Yeah.
And I might mention, as far as if you're looking for a sandbox or playground to get going, I mean, IBM does offer one. I think Dan's going to talk about it. But SAP has also got a decent one as well.
So it's like SAP, IBM, Oracle, Google, AWS, and
Microsoft.
Well, Microsoft's not hosting it, they got their own.
Right.
And there's Accenture.
Accenture, yeah.
Accenture, yeah. So those are like the 6 major ones dealing with it. So obviously, those 6 huge companies are dealing with not only Hyperledger and Ethereum. You guys kind of need to like play around and find out what works, you know. I've dealt with IBM, I haven't dealt with SAP or anything. IBM has a good service, but they charge an astronomical amount for their services. $500 for 1 month, and $1,000 for $500 for a localized environment, and $1,000 for an enterprise environment a month. So you gotta have some money to do this. If you have a student email, they give you a 30-day like a 30-day credit basically, which is like $500 worth, which is like the localized level. So if you want to check that out, I can put that link out there, or email me, I can send it to you.
Who's that? Who does that? IBM?
IBM, yes. Yeah, IBM.
You should be able to ask for the 3. This is at least.
Yeah.
You should be able to ask for the 3 month for a student, or like I think it's like by semester. I used to use IBM, Bluemix, and IBM's like Hyperledger stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have changed now.
Yeah, I mean, when I contacted them, this was like August, September last year, somewhere around there. They were like, yeah, we only need credit for 1 can build it all by hand. That's the only problem. They provide the service, and I've got to pay for the service. So digital identity, I've never heard of a Nehan, I probably looked at that name. They use Hyperledger ND for digital identity. Real estate transactions, so attorneys, I know we get to see like 3 of them this year. Have you seen this before?
I made that.
Oh, you made this? I didn't know that. So they use Hyperledger. Tyler, do you want to say anything about that? I didn't know that, actually.
I was working since this Hyperledger in 2017, but we used Hyperledger for that, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that.
All right, Dion, I can't see you over there. So there he is, there, I'll wave. There you go.
So if you guys go in, you can actually play this little game. So you can go in and give critiques and tell them. No, I'm just kidding. But if you want to come back and look at this and play the game, it's basically like Monopoly, right? Is that basically, yeah, it's like Monopoly, right?
Yeah, it's one of those parts like Monopoly on properties, and 2 players can play at a time.
Yeah.
It was not perfect, the console's not the best, but it works.
Hey, I think it's, I played it, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, so definitely check it out. Music and media rights. That's obviously a huge thing here in Nashville, especially the music aspect of it. Blockchain Media kind of deals with it. You would think they would have an office here in Nashville, but they don't. They have one in like Portland, Oregon, and London, and somewhere else, which I find to be quite odd. Green asset management, IBM's using it for carbon emissions in China. If you're interested about that, check out the video. Letters of credit, Ron, you want to talk about?
Sure. I mean, have you guys heard this term, letters of credit, before? Okay, I know the attorneys have, but okay. So in the real world, I don't know if they ever use them, but we use them. In 30-something years, I think we've only used them about maybe a half a dozen times, and the reason for that is if you're trying to sell something to a customer and they may have questionable credit, or maybe they don't have any money and they think they're going to get the money, whatever the case is. You don't want to sell something if you're not getting paid for it. So maybe they've got strong relations with the bank, and the bank will give them a letter of credit, basically guaranteeing payment when payment is due. Now, I'm simplifying it down for you. There's more to it than this, but what it boils down to is if I sell something to somebody and they're supposed to pay me in 30 days, and they don't, the bank pays me. Now, the bank charges them for this. That's one of the reasons why it's not used a lot of time. I've seen, depending on how much it is, they may charge them 1%, 3%, maybe more. It just depends on their relationship with the bank, but it allows you to get payment. And of course, some of the stuff happening with blockchain now is they're starting to use cryptocurrency in this. And we're not talking about that a lot tonight, but that is one of the things that some people are starting to do with letters of credit. Although, again, our focus tonight is primarily non-crypto. You can use it in it. In the structured business environments that I deal in and some of the other things that we're looking at, again, most of the stuff is payment through purchase orders and stuff like that. We're just trying to mechanize it. So usually we wouldn't get the letter of credit.
All right, cool. Food trust. Walmart's kind of dealing with this right now. Like when that romaine lettuce outbreak happened with the E. coli, I think is what it was, they had blockchain in place, so they didn't really suffer too much, where a lot of other, like Kroger and Publix, all of them kind of suffered a lot more, because they already had blockchain in place and it kind of saved them. So that's just kind of one real world case on the food trust aspect. I find this to be very interesting, but you can check out more information on it when I post the slides. Digital trade chain. A lot of these banks, especially if you've traveled internationally, you're going to recognize all of these, especially like I recognize HSBC. I've noticed them in London, I think is where I saw them. So they also deal with that as well. All right, so we're going to take like a 5-minute, 8-minute break. If you guys want to get out and get some food or beer or whatever, or unless you guys are good, we're going to get hands-on so I can set up everything, and then we're actually going to start programming and going over some stuff. So, go ahead. So, if you haven't joined the Slack channel, I know I've already mentioned it to some of y'all, please try to do that because I have all the code and everything that we're going to be working with on that channel. It's this. I've kind of wrote it out real quickly. So just copy and paste the code in. That's kind of what we're going for tonight. You don't need to understand the whole inner workings of the code and everything. I just want you to see that with this code, you can create a blockchain network and go from there. Later on, we'll dive into the inner workings of the code and what have you. So everybody needs to go, if you have a laptop, if you don't, just try to find somebody that does if you want to watch, and go to this URL right here, composer-playground.mybluemix.net. Bluemix is IBM's cloud service, except it's not called Bluemix anymore, it's called IBM Cloud, because I figured that why we're calling it Bluemix, it doesn't make any sense. So go to that, and when you do get there, it'll bring up a prompt and will say down in the blue button, let's blockchain. Just click that button and you'll get to right here. I would suggest, I'm taking the code directly that they wrote in the Playground tutorial, so if you want to make a second tab on that, you're more than welcome to, or if you want to go back later and look over this, because the step-by-step guide is pretty good, but it's not super straightforward, especially on the access control file. It's not straightforward at all, because you're like, oh, it's fine, and it's not fine. So, like I said, if you want to open that, we're more than welcome to, but if you're wanting to follow along with me, you can just copy and paste the code because I've already got it on that document. So, let's go ahead and go in. I'm going to come over here and hit get started. This mouse on my laptop, by the way, is kind of weird, so I'm going to try to do the best I can with it. When they're developing the sample network, sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it doesn't. This is about, well, should work, it was working fine. Let me know if anybody else can get into it. So.
The URL again was composer.
Composer-playground.mybluemix.net.
I got it on the phone.
Oh, you did? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, I was afraid this would happen, so that's why I wrote the guide, and I wrote a lot of instructions on there. So if this did happen, you could just hopefully understand what I'm saying in the guide. It normally doesn't take this long. Was everybody able to get it up by chance?
502 bad gateway.
Okay.
In Chrome.
Yeah, I did all mine in Chrome. This one's in Safari because that's what we have on this laptop. Might be because so many people are getting it.
It's been slow.
Yeah. Well, okay, so if this doesn't load in, I guess I could just refer to this document, because it takes screenshots. So that does, I think, kind of help a little bit. So no one was successful getting it to pull up. Oh, did you get it back there?
I still want to lead the way, but
Okay, so is it okay if I just kind of continue along? And you can go back and watch the video with me. It's just I don't want to waste everybody's time. Us just sit here waiting on something to load that should be working. This is why you need your own servers, by the way. You can put the Composer Plyaground on your own server. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay, anyway. So you click the Get Started button, and we'll scroll down.
It looks like you're in a Google Doc, but this is a. Oh, you are. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in a Google Doc. I wrote a Google Doc.
This doesn't look like an IDE for that.
Yeah, no. I wrote a Google Doc for this. Well, come on. There we go. Okay. So it'll take you to this if you get in, and this text is really small because I'm scoping it up and see it on their laptop. Right here, there are 4 files, and one is called a package.json, and I kind of wrote a little bit about it here, so I had to like squid around really, really hard. Package.json file basically just describes the file, like what's going on with the participants, the assets, and the transactions. Just like if you're just kind of going and saying, what does this blockchain network do? That's what that file's for.
Could you expand the window with that?
Oh, yeah. I'll just do this. And then I think I can do this. Okay. Is that, everybody can see that, right? So you got the about package.json, the model file, which what I said was the file the business people can kind of develop on, and it will, I'll scroll down here in a second. You got your scripting file, which is the smart contract or chain code for transactional logic, and the access control, which was for what users and for permissions on what they have on the blockchain network. And when you finish this whole thing, you could export it and deploy it into your own business environment, right? Like right now, you were ready to do that. If you wanted to add that query file, by the way, you just click Add File and do that. So we will kind of scroll down.
I've got a question.
Yes.
When these are they exported as 4 separate files,
Yeah.
or is there like
They're exported as the banana file.
Okay.
They're exported as the banana file.
If you go to view, and then do not presentation mode, but it'll get rid of all the controls and some more real estate in the upper left.
Upper left.
Like part of Google Docs is menu bar. You
Oh,
might make
in what file?
There.
View to the right.
You
And I'm trying to see, it's kind of hard to see.
There.
And then there's something like some type of mode.
Full screen.
Full screen, but the other one will hide all the controls. Mode.
Mode.
Viewing.
Well,
Might
it
not
is
hide.
so difficult controlling this. And then we'll go full screen, I guess. So when you get to the modeling file, I have all the code copy and pasted. As you can see, it's its own modeling language. So don't worry about what a string is and all that. I know the programmers will pick up on that real quick, but you don't need to worry about that. Essentially, what these things for basic are like attributes to the asset, or we're calling the asset a commodity. So these are just attributes related to the commodity. So it'd be like a description describing the commodity, the number of said commodity, and the owner of the commodity. We also have the participant. So like I said, the three things you have to have are participant, an asset, and transaction.
And you might want to clarify, the asset and commodity is the same thing. It's it's what you got, what you're trading.
The asset is the actual, like what you would name it. It's like an object, and then you're just naming it. The name is called the commodity, but you can name it whatever you want to name it.
Anybody got that slide yet?
I got mine.
Did you get up? Yes. Well, they got it up. Some of them.
Oh, okay. So you got it up? Somebody got it? Okay, so just everybody get around and kind of watch into. I could try to be on my end.
So if yours is up yet.
Everything else is actually fast. It's just IBM. It's, everything's slow. Seems like.
What's your screen, Jim?
Well, I'm still sitting here, so I'll just keep continuing. So the participant, it's just attributes, like I said. So you got the trade ID, so it'd be like, their ID, that's their unique ID related to that person, the first name, last name. That would be the attribute of a participant, and the name is called a trader. The transaction information, they're just pulling it from commodity, or from the asset and the participant, and they're just putting it in the transaction field, or transaction object, which is called trade. So after you do that, you would hit, have you copied and pasted all the new?
I have not.
Okay, it's okay.
I was just like, stood there.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. You would hit the submit button, then you would move on down to the script file. You want to focus on the model file first, because if you don't, they're going to give you a bunch of errors. It's going to get super confusing. So always design the model file first, then go to the transactional logic or the smart contract, then go to the access control. They have it set up like that for a reason. Trust me, it can get bad if you don't do it that way. So like this is just one little function. This is all the smart contract is. And smart contract in like a business setting would not be this simple, but that's just what ours is on this. And basically we're just saying when we make a transaction, make the original trader or make a new owner to that new asset. I thought this was going to go a lot smoother because that thing wasn't working, but it's, yeah. The access control, now don't get really like scared by this, it's like really long and stuff, but basically it's rules. I mean, we all see the word rules. And basically that just means, okay, everybody who signs up for this is going to can read or see what's going on in the blockchain, and they can submit transactions. And it has a description, so if you don't know what's going on, just read the description, and it kind of summarizes everything for you. We have I don't know how many rules, we have quite a number of them, like 7 or 8 of them. So, you have like network admin, user, owner has full access to the assets. So if you own the asset, you get to see everything going on with it. So yeah, you just copy and paste what it's in. Once you get done, there's a deploy changes. Do you see that in the bottom left-hand corner down there? It says deploy changes. It's a blue button at the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah, so when you're done doing all that, you would hit deploy changes. Then you would move over to the top, and it says like define, and there's a test tab. Do you see that?
Yes.
Like, yeah. So you would click test, and this is where you would write or create a participant, asset, and a transaction. You were just defining what they were at the beginning on that other tab. Now you're actually creating a participant, an asset, and a transaction. So you would navigate to the trader tab, copy and paste this code in. And as you can see, we're just basically saying, you got a trader, we're going to give her a trader ID of trader 1. Her name's Jenny Jones. Then you're going to submit that. Then you're going to do the exact same thing again. You're just going to make a second trader and call her Amy Williams. So you're going to have 2 participants in this blockchain network right now. More people can join later. Like Ron said, he said we have 2 now, but you can have like 6, 7, 8, whatever you want to have on it. Next up, you create a participant, you're going to create an asset. You're going to replace that information. You will copy and paste this information in, and basically you're saying, hey, we're calling this a commodity. The trading symbol is ABC, but that could be like the contract name or whatever you want to call it. And then they have a description, just saying it's a commodity, and then other information related to that commodity. So like a quantity amount, in this case a main exchange. And also the new and the current owner. And then finally, you're going to submit the transaction saying, hey, I want to, well, that is, you're going to submit the transactions. You're basically saying, hey, trader 1 wants to trade this asset to trader 2, and then you're going to submit that. So you're saying, I want to make a trade, and you're wanting to trade this commodity ABC, which would be contract or the paperwork.
He's got his up now too, you may want to.
Oh, okay.
Where can we get the Google Doc?
Your Google Doc, it's on the Slack channel.
Oh, which,
It should be in, there's one that says like Hyperledger code from lecture something, it's that channel.
we have to join it, it's not showing.
Oh yeah, you gotta join it, sorry.
Try yours though, you got a couple people in, so yours is open. Nope. Well, refresh it. Well, maybe, it's going.
This is a very poor example because it's that time. I apologize for it. Oh, well. Oh, but no top. Well, I had it. Oh, there we go. Somewhat.
So that lightning fast supercomputer IBM is.
Oh, okay, let's see if this works. Let's blockchain.
Ross is working on the other AI.
Yeah.
Get started. It's supposed to take it to the next page. All right, well, anyway, so once you submit the transaction, you finished the whole transaction and everything. So you submitted the transactions of the blockchain. It's on the distributed ledger, and the ledger looks like this. It's going to look something like that. I'm going to zoom in. Well, we'll stay still. Okay, now I can zoom in and you can see the distributed ledger. Alright, so this is the distributed ledger. So it shows everything from when you started the business network to when you added a participant, added an asset, and a trade. Now, if you click, which I think I have a screenshot, I'm not 100% sure. If you go over here and click the view record area, it will show, yeah, I did do that, very good. It will pull this up on the trade. So it'll show The new owner is Trade 2, which is, I think, Amy Williams was her name. Now she owns ABC. That is the hash to uniquely identify the transaction happened, and this was a timestamp too when it happened. So that would be the whole transaction. And you can do this over and over. You can make new trades if you want. Try to play around with it and transfer new assets, but it should all work the same. So yeah, I know people are probably going to want to question. Yes.
Are you saying that the transaction ID is the hash of the information in the transaction?
So yeah, it will know that the commodity ABC, whatever's containing that information. This is just keeping track of what was transacted. So it's not the actual information on it, not the actual contract.
Okay, this is like the header.
Yeah, this is just saying, hey, this person sent a transaction over. This was what the information was. And if you go back and look at the other file where it kind of describes ABC, it'll give you more of a descriptor of what it is or what's on it related to that. But here it's just going to tell you what was transferred over to the new owner. Anybody else have any other questions? Probably doesn't make any sense because we didn't actually get to do anything, which I apologize for.
Check yours again, it may come alive. Some people's got it, so who knows? Strange. Nope, it still worked. Pressure.
Yeah.
Must be a lot of people doing it tonight.
No, I mean, it came up on the phone immediately.
Really?
First time, yeah.
Wow.
I don't think. Yeah.
It comes up on the phone?
Let me tell you, I tested this numerous times before I came in here to demonstrate it, like, no problem, zero. And all of a sudden, this happened. So, hopefully we'll get, oh, see, it just does that every time. It's never done that before.
Well, you can work with people individually, because there's not that many people.
If anybody, okay, well, if anybody like wants to help them out by doing it, I'm more than happy to sit here and help you all with it if you want to.
I did it, I followed the instructions.
Did it work?
Yeah.
All right, great. That means I wrote it well.
So you got it working?
Yeah, it
Okay.
So
So
basically,
let's get our video of our only success story here. So how does it feel to make it work the first time? Yeah, you got it working.
I'm going to also put out, so you just go full blockchain network. So you did all that. So what we're going to be doing in the next session is putting that, what you built, on your own server and putting a whole front end attached to it. So like a user interface.
The GUI.
That's kind of the goal I'm setting, like I said, by the end of the year, for everybody who wants to participate can do that.
You got yours going too, didn't you?
So I'm glad you got it to work. Does anybody have any other questions related to it? Be happy to answer. Like I said, you can email me. I'm going to put the slideshow up probably tomorrow. I have an extended deep dive version of the slideshow if you want a lot of information, because I know some people like a lot of information, some people don't like a lot of information. I get that. So I made 2 different slideshows. I'm going to upload this one probably tonight, and I'll get the deep dive one, as I call it. Probably upload it tomorrow afternoon-ish. So you can check back. It's all going to be on the Slack channel. So definitely check that out. Yes.
So what are like the main differences between doing something on Hyperledger versus an Ethereum smart contract?
So I haven't done too much Ethereum development, to be honest. Dion or Scott could probably speak more on the Ethereum side, if you don't mind.
Like what's the question?
Differences between like, I mean, so you can build the same thing on.
Hyperledger is more built on building. Is that part of that?
Well, we do JavaScript. And Golang.
Yeah, Ethereum's different language, like ADM language called Solidity. says a whole different language, but it's mostly the same, like, kind of thought process as Hyperledger, I would say.
So this smart contract, to be quite honest with you, was a very poor example of a smart contract. Most of it, a lot of it contains conditional statements. So it's like if trader one submits this thing and do this kind of thing with trader two or whatever, that was just an easy way to demonstrate the blockchain working. And that's all I wanted you to get out of it. Just saying, this is how simple it is to build a blockchain network. Like I said, in the next sessions, we're going to probably go a little more deeper into it. I know like everybody in here doesn't have an extensive programming background, and that's why I'm kind of trying to cater to the people who are wanting to learn about programming but don't really know where to start, because it's a pretty scary thing, to be honest. There's no nice way of saying it.
And you might comment too, there's of the different parts of Hyperledger, like Ethereum and some of the other things, you know, parts of it, it doesn't even require programming. It's like administrative, especially when you're at the consensus level, you're trying to determine what's what. So, as Matthew said earlier, you know, you may want to speak to some of your legal team on that. When other things come up like that we've been faced with, and you know, we've had our attorneys talk to us about is the exchange rates. If you're doing stuff overseas, you know, if you're going to execute a document, when does it become live? So, because you know, we're on one time zone, they're on another time zone, we're on one currency, so we got to state all that out in our contracts. That's part of your consensus process, and then when you get down to the actual smart contract, except some of that stuff you would put into the code, some of it. Of course, another thing we used our attorneys for, and I'm sure these two guys would advise, if you're going to start your own application, our attorneys have always said, be sure you get your offer, they call it offer of sale, is that the proper term? I mean, that's what our attorneys always said. Get your sales up front, get an agreement with them so you're protecting yourself. Like sometimes when you go use freeware, you go through all that stuff, you check. Well, our guys have told us don't be quite like that. They said be sure you communicate with them that they had, we used to call it meeting of the minds. I don't know what they call it now, but they said be sure that you're on the same page with them and you actually get a written agreement. So that, and again, this is Hyperledger. Ethereum may be instant things. With Hyperledger, you're in a private network, you're setting it up with a customer you're going to be doing a lot of business with. You need to get those terms set up. You need to be determining when title passes, if it's going into other countries, you have to get all kinds of documents sometimes. All of that stuff has to be worked out. So you really need to get some good advice on that. And by the way, we do business in other countries. We hire attorneys in those countries because they know the laws better than the attorneys in this country. And sometimes you're lucky, you've got people that have offices in both places and they can network together. Sometimes you don't. Yeah.
Just had a question going back to his question back there, should get his name. But I understand you can write the smart contracts on Ethereum, Solidity, or with JavaScript.
Yeah.
But I guess they suppose they have slight strengths, and, you know.
Yeah.
But it sounds a bit like Dr. Pepper and Coca-Cola.
That's an interesting analogy, but yeah, I guess.
Well,
yes.
Maybe it sort of sounds like maybe you're saying that for the private blockchains, you actually have to get consensus from the legal system, whereas like on a public blockchain, if you have the digital crypto assets in the address and you control the private keys, everyone else will recognize it as yours, and you don't actually care if a judge validates it, because everyone you care about agrees that from the proof of work or the proof of stake that is yours.
So, and in that DAO we did last time, you know, it did a smart contract for us. I mean, it was automatic. And I wanted to comment, you don't have to get your legal team involved, but I mean, if it's something simple we're doing tonight, probably not. But when you do have these multiple processes going to different countries and you're doing bills of lading and other things, yeah, you may want to talk to somebody and get some good advice.
Like if Microsoft is like, well, actually that money and your address in Hyperledger, that's mine, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Like no one else will.
Well, what happens is, I didn't cover this, we'll cover this next session, but I'll give you a tease. There is a position in the blockchain Hyperledger network called a certificate authenticator, and basically what that role is, it's like, they just issue out these ID cards. So, you know, like we have a wallet in a public, like Ethereum, you carry currency. Well, in Hyperledger, we don't carry currency, we carry identification cards, or pure cards. And each card, it can be in multiple networks. You know how, like, in a wallet, you carry multiple IDs, like driver's license or school ID, you know, whatever. You have different permissions on, like, what level you can access each of those blockchain networks on. So, like, in your case, like you were saying, you know, that they recognize who you are. Well, certificate authenticator will know. It's like, oh, hey, I joined the network and I have a certain level of access, so I can do kind of almost whatever I want within reason. But you can get a consensus on, okay, do we all approve that he can do this thing, whether it's transfer an asset, you know, create a new asset, you know, whatever. So that's just kind of a position.
Yeah, one other example on the chain code that we're running into, and again, we haven't done this yet, we've been looking at it. We just found out in Europe, for a lot of the countries, they require longer warranties. So, depending on what you're doing. So, some countries don't. Well, we don't want to give a longer warranty if we don't have to. So, you can have conditional statements come in there. They can be part of the agreement ahead of time. We mitigate some of that by getting distributors who distribute to those countries, and we don't have to deal with it. But you do need to think about that, because if you're going to deal directly with the end user, then you may have to end up giving an extended warranty out. Well, it's not really extended for them anymore. I think it's 2 years on some of this equipment. And, you know, we kind of get around it sometimes because we make it in the U.S. But again, this is a part of the consensus process. And if you look, you said, oh, we're going to sell this in this country, it could automatically come up in your code. Trigger, basically. It's a trigger. You said, okay, well, now I may have to extend the warranty out.
Yeah.
So
has anybody else got any other questions, comments, or anything? I know you're, yes.
I think one comment back to your question about the difference between Ethereum and Hyperledger. One way to think about it is Ethereum is built with a smart contract at its core. And so when you're transacting business in that way, as long as you got the smart contract coded, then you and I can create a transaction unbeknownst to each other and have that built in to whatever conditions we want to put on the smart contract. Hyperledger is different in that it's more enterprise grade and it's more business to business. And that's where the comments with regard to making sure that if you're planning on doing business to business, and we're going to be sending, you know, $2.9 trillion of goods and services back and forth, you want to have some of that figured out in advance so that you're meeting all those requirements. So you could then write into something like Hyperledger. If product A gets shipped to India, it has warranty B. If product C gets shipped to the UK, it has warranty C. And so those could be conditional if the end statement is written into the Hyperledger, but it's more for business to business, and it's somewhat of a private transaction because we already set up our keys, we know what's going on with each other, and it's pretty much just the electronic engine behind our deal that we cut. Versus, you know, Ethereum is different and much more, I would view it public-based in general.
Okay, good. Yeah, he's exactly right. I've always told people, like when I talk about Hyperledger, I'm like, Hyperledger is more like the B2B side, where Ethereum and the public side is more like a B2C. More. So that would you guys agree with that, Jim?
Yeah, even C.
Even C to C.
And again, last time we met, we had the smart contract automatically done in that dial we used. It was automatically done. So you can look. Is that on the Slack channel? The notes and stuff from last time?
I don't think Lou.
All right. It was.
But anyway, I was just going to say, another thing, a little slight difference between the Hyperledger and Ethereum too is Ethereum, when you submit something, I think it's on Etherscan, correct me if I'm wrong, when it goes out, it doesn't tell you like it identifies you, it just kind of puts out the hash, right? Where on Hyperledger, you're knowing what transactions are going on, but you don't know what's being transferred, you just know so-and-so's doing a transaction.
Oh, I forgot. One of the biggest ones, we totally kind of glossed over it earlier. One of the huge differences, how do you pay for it? You know, we have gas in the Ethereum world. You know, we were trading coins and stuff just to do it to operate. So you don't have to spend $1,000 a month to get the blooming server. Or you can do like he did and goes buy cheapo servers and just set everything up. And there's other tools in that like Docker and Kubernetes and a lot of other tools they use to help put this stuff out there. But if you're using Ethereum, a lot of times you're funding the cost of those servers through the cryptocurrency and stuff. Where here, if you're an enterprise, if you're Microsoft, you got your blooming server already. You're charging other people for it too. If you're a company like mine, like we use a product called NetSuite, which is Oracle. They've now jumped on the Hyperledger bandwagon. Of course, nobody knows anything over there at all, but yet they're offering it. You pretty much have to kind of get in and do some of your own stuff. But nevertheless, and they offer some good prices too. But that's on their service because you're already paying them a fee. An outrageous fee, I might add. But you're paying them a fee.
So if anybody has any other questions or comments, you can email me and everything. I think it's about time that we end this. So thank you for everybody for coming out. I appreciate your time and attention. Hopefully we can see you at the next Hyperledger meetup and the next blockchain developers meetup too, which we don't have a date on either of those, but stay tuned on the meetup channels. So yeah, thank you. Everybody, good night.
Thank you.